Morning all. Again, I said it earlier, but to those that just joined, Dom DeMeo with the CEO of the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, and I'm here this morning in partnership with the Lakewood Ranch Community Fund. And on behalf of the Lakewood Ranch Board of Directors and my team, I'm proud to bring you another powerful leads presentation. Just a reminder, we are recording this morning, so if you don't care to be seen, you can go ahead and, other than for my speakers, you can go ahead and shut off your cameras. And but if you don't mind it, we will be recording. So I just wanted to make sure we give you that notice. So please allow me to extend a warm welcome to our guest, Debi Mason, Executive Vice President, Chief Philanthropy Officer with Tidewell Hospice, Frey, Interim CEO with the Manatee Family YMCA, and Jayne Giroux, Director of Community Development with the SunCoast Blood Centers. Thank you to all three of you for being willing to give to our members this morning. We'll hear more about their backgrounds as the panelists as we progress through the morning. I also wanted to give a shout out and thank you to Dan Sidler, our own Vice President, and Garrett Shin, Director or Board President with the Lakewood Ranch Community Fund, partner at Carr Riggs Ingram, and committee member with us on our community engagement committee at the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance. Thank to both of you for helping put this together this morning for the people that are attending. As usual, I'll take a minute. I don't go as deep as I normally do as our in person, but I want to thank our sponsors, our presidential and executive level sponsors. They sit behind me on our screens. I'm doing my best to celebrate them anytime we can these days. And the rest of our annual sponsors are available on the Alliance website. So if you're able to visit, you can see who is supporting the Alliance every day, helping keep our mission so that we can connect, educate, and grow on programs like we are doing this morning. So we bring to you another leads this morning, and we're focused on how a few of our community nonprofit organizations have adapted as a result of our pandemic. Although I'm sure we are not done with adaptation, I'm also sure that our region will be stronger and more cohesive because of what we have done so far. It's my pleasure to turn the program over to Garrett Shin, and Garrett will give you some information on our panel of speakers today. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Dom. As Dom said, I'm here on behalf of the Community Fund today, and I'm excited to share that over the past few months, since our announcement of our COVID-19 response fund to benefit organizations in the Lakewood Ranch and East Manatee and Sarasota County areas, we've granted over $75,000 to those qualifying organizations, and we've approved $150,000. So if you know of any organizations that could use some assistance, financial assistance, please send them our way. We'd love to hear from them, learn about what they're doing and how we can help. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our panel of speakers who represent three nonprofits in our area, who, like many of us, have been impacted by COVID-19 and have faced the challenge of how to respond and push through this pandemic while holding true to the organization's mission. First up today is Debi Mason. As Dom introduced, she's the Executive Vice President and Chief Philanthropy Officer of Tidewell Hospice and Stratum Health. She's well credentialed in her field, holding the CFRE designation for philanthropy, the Accredited Public Relations Professional, Certified Public Relations Counselor, and received the title of Fellow PRSA. In October of 2019, she joined Tidewell and Stratum Health, bringing with her a wealth of knowledge and experience. Previously serving as CEO of the Healthcare Foundation of Northern Sonoma County, she has also owned and operated a public relations and strategic planning agency and has served multiple vice president roles with JM Family Enterprises. Next up, we have Frey, and he is the interim CEO of Manatee County Family YMCA. Frank has a decorated career experience, including prior interim CEO roles for YMCAs across the country, post his retirement after 47 years of service with the YMCA. For 27 of those years, Frank served as president and CEO of the Greater Valley YMCA in Allentown, Pennsylvania. During his tenure with the Greater Valley YMCA, he successfully completed a $10 million capital improvement campaign and raising over $8 million of contributions. He's a pioneer in his industry, forming a state alliance of YMCAs in the Pennsylvania area and served chair of the Alliance from 2008 to 2011. Finally, we have Jayne Giroux, she is the Community Development Director for the SunCoast Blood Centers, serving the organization's spokesperson, cultivating community awareness regarding blood donation, as well as the liaison to local businesses and organizations. In addition, she coordinates fundraising campaigns for SunCoast. Her past experience of being an executive director for the Southwest region of the Florida chapter of the Arthritis Foundation, marketing and development program creator for the Bishop Museum, formerly known as the South Florida Museum. And finally, she was a consultant exclusively for nonprofits, focusing in on best practice and board development and strategic planning. So join me in welcoming our panelists today. And now I'd like to turn it over to Debi to take it away.
To talk to you a little bit about this morning, Tidewell Hospice, and I'm pleased to share our story with you. Tidewell Hospice is a not-for-profit legacy hospice, and we've been in the community 40 years. We bring a lot of trust as we've been by your side, serving tens of thousands of patients every year. You may not know that Tidewell Hospice is a part of a healthcare system, Stratum Health, and we have some sister companies I'll tell you a little bit about. How we provide our services is really very core to our values as an organization. We're very committed to ensuring the community that everyone receives quality of care in the setting that they feel most safe. And so we come to you, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Most people aren't even aware of that. It's easy to reach us. We have a 24/7 care access center, and we have that center because a lot of times families need help, but they don't know exactly what kind of help they need. So we have Tidewell Hospice that comes to patients in their homes, and we also have 8 hospice houses across the 4 counties we serve. In addition to that, under the Stratum umbrella, we have a sister company approved, which provides companion care and private care to families in their homes where the patient resides. And we have Avidity, another sister company, which provides skilled care. And skilled care, for those of you who don't know, are things like physical therapists and occupational therapists, folks that are helping you recover and resume from surgeries or strokes or other kinds of health situations. And then we have Connexus as a sister company, which provides physician services. And with all of those companies, we're coming to you. So if you live in a retirement home, an ALF, if you live in a private home, we're coming to you. And for hospice, that's about 1,200 patients a day. If you total up all of the patients under our care daily for all of the Stratum Health companies, that's about 3,500 patients a day under our care. So we're caring for lots of patients. So that's a little bit about who we are to give you the context. We have about 1,100 employees across all of the Stratum companies. About 700 of those are right in Tidewell Hospice. As you might suspect, the majority of those are clinical-facing colleagues, but of course we do have the regular support departments that you would expect for a large enterprise. And I'll talk about that when we get to our response for COVID-19, because obviously that's been a little bit different. So that's who we are. We provide our service through the lens of our values in providing compassion and care and integrity and transparency and teamwork and respect and clear communication with our patients. We do a lot of collaboration on care plans, including the patient and the family and also the physicians. A lot of times people are referred to us directly from a physician practice, other times from hospitals or other environments or settings. So that's a little bit about who we are and how we provide our services. So when COVID-19 hit, we experienced that response like most nonprofits on 3 levels. The first level was the immediate response level of what are we going to need to do to ensure the safest care for our patients and their families and our colleagues Our employees are known as colleagues, so you'll hear me reference them as colleagues as we go through this. So the very first challenge, many of you might have heard about, was actually getting personal protective equipment. I think the world is now familiar with the acronym PPE, whereas most of us in non-healthcare environments never heard of it before COVID-19. It's interesting that as an industry, that industry was not prepared and stockpiled to the degree that you would have hoped to deal with a pandemic, nor apparently was our government with regard to having stockpiles, and nor, frankly, were most of us as organizations. We certainly had some back stock, but with leaner and meaner profit margins, if you're a for-profit company, and for us, bottom line margins as a not-for-profit, over the years, no one has really had the extra resources as a not-for-profit to go around with warehouses of PPE and stockpiling those. So that was our first immediate challenge. I'm pleased to say the community rallied in so many ways to try to help us get PPE and to give us money to buy PPE. So we had construction companies sending us their N95 masks, and tattoo shops locally that drop shipped supplies to us. The amalgamation of ways that we got PPE was quite amazing. And we had patient families who were in industries. We had an industry in New Jersey who sent us their last case of N95 masks, along with alcohol. So amazing stories that we've been trying to share in the community of how the community responded to PPE, and also financial contributions. I would say the immediate challenge is still the lasting challenge on the second area there, and that's the actual business challenges. So the model of healthcare has changed dramatically, particularly for those of us that are in the end of life part of that healthcare spectrum. We experienced and continue to experience changing rules about how we can access our own patients in retirement centers, in ALFs, in other places. The rules are changing daily for them from the government lens, as well as their own lens as they try to establish increased safety measures for their own patients and families and colleagues that work there as well. So every day, our clinicians and our business development team are facing changing barriers to access patients that want our care and have asked for our care. We have a lot of patients who experience extreme fear of letting us in their homes. Remember, about 95% of our patients are elderly, as you might suspect, and that's the prime target audience for COVID-19. So rampant fear really made it very difficult for us to access even patients in their own private homes. Obviously, our colleagues were fully zoot-suited and PPE with masks and gloves and gowns and everything we could do to reassure them. But sometimes people's fear kept them from getting the care they need, and frankly still does a little bit today too. A sad thing that we experienced and continue to experience from COVID-19 is the inability to deliver part of the beautiful part of hospice. If you or your family have ever experienced hospice, you know that a part of the beautiful part of the service is the love and compassion that we give through comfort, which is facial expressions, which you can't see through masks. The ability to smile, the ability to hug someone, the ability to touch someone. That kind of caring and compassion is so integral to a part of the peace and beauty that hospice brings, not only the patient, but the family too. So that's a barrier we continue to have. Our referral patterns have changed. Remember, with most physician offices being closed for quite a while, people weren't going to their physician. And we're seeing a lot of data where emergency rooms had a decrease, which is fascinating to think about. So where are all those folks with heart attacks and strokes and appendicitis? Where are they? Because you can look at the data and see a dramatic fall off of those kinds of situations. So we know that the trends have changed for all of us in healthcare, not just the end of life spectrum. So there's a lot of unknowns. And I'll talk about that a little bit about how we adapt to that in the future. The third was in some of the prepared questions you all submitted ahead of time, and thank you for that, was folks asking, did we have a financial hit? And yes, we had a dramatic financial hit. In the first month alone, we lost almost $1 million in increased costs due to caring for patients. With COVID, caring for our own colleagues to prepare them to care for patients, and in the increased cost in moving a workforce remote that had never been remote before in terms of the back of house support services, IT, philanthropy, marketing, accounting, finance, all facilities, all of the support services that typically are housed in our administrative buildings had to learn how to work remotely, had to have the equipment to work remotely, and we had to mobilize that very quickly. You know, I'll pause here and just say how grateful we are to the Lakewood Ranch Community Fund and the Manatee Community Foundation and Forensic Foundation and Gulf Coast Community Foundation and Truist, because those grantors stepped up quickly and said, how can we help you? How can we be a part of sustaining what we do? Because we know how important you are to the community. And that revenue was really important to us. As an organization, we have received CARES Act fund from the government, but we aren't touching those funds yet. Why? Because the government is still trying to figure out what will be allowable to be covered and what won't be allowable to be covered. And we're working closely with our auditors and our finance advisors to make sure that whatever we do use those funds for will end up being permissible as government sorts through all that. So it was great to get those government dollars. We hope to be able to apply those government dollars, but we've not yet been able to apply those. So looking forward, I'll tell you, we as an organization adapted, as you might suspect, as a healthcare organization by having daily clinical COVID-19 calls and executive level COVID-19 calls. In our call today, our executive in charge of procuring PPE told us that our suppliers told us today that what we're getting is what we're going to get for the remainder of the year, because they will not have the capacity to increase their allocations. So literally, healthcare entities are on an allocation restricted system in being able to obtain PPE even now, and we anticipate that will cover through the year and perhaps into 2021. So, you know, the other thing I would say is this virus is not finished with us yet. As a community, as a society, as a state, we're going to see a second wave soon. According to the data, our numbers are going up in Florida every day. We're going to see a second wave most likely from all the wonderful Memorial Day activities that we saw people enjoying and from the protests that sadly our society needed to take to make a stand on issues. So as people go back to work, our workforce will be going back to work in phases, very slow, deliberate, safe, staggered phases. But what will that entail in terms of COVID? We've been very lucky as an organization, thanks to our use of PPE. We've had a tiny percentage of our workforce affected by COVID, which is great. And that includes our clinicians that are on the front lines, because we've been our chief medical officer has been so focused on keeping all of us safe and all of our patients safe as well. We also have some other factors at play this year in the future for us. You may have heard we announced a merger with Empath. Empath is a very large hospice health system that sits in Pinellas County and also now serves Hillsborough County. That merger will make us the single largest not-for-profit hospice in the country and hospice health system in the country. We're hopeful that that may give us a little bit more buying power to get additional PPE, but again, with the shortage of PPE in the industry in general, we're still a little bit worried about that. And we are launching a foundation as of July 1st this year, the Tidewell Foundation, and we're very excited about that, and a way for us to increase our fundraising. The community's been really supportive of Tidewell in the last 10 years alone. Each year we average about $5 million a year in contributions, and that money goes to pay for our charity care and our free grief services, our free complimentary patient services, our children's services, and a lot of other very worthwhile services. I would pause before I close and just let you know we did launch a month or so ago a 24/7 Hope line, and that line is staffed by our grief services professionals. Tidewell is the community's grief services provider, and we go far beyond in that service, in serving people in the community who have never even had a Tidewell hospice experience. We serve children in schools. We serve employers who have lost family employee members. We're the place that the community calls when a disaster happens and they need that mental health support, and our grief services team is available 24/7. I'll share that 800 number in the post materials that come to you. We also, I would reinforce that our care center is available 24/7 to help folks navigate exactly where the right entry point is into getting care for families, whether it's someone sitting private care, or it's companion care or skilled care, or our hospice services or palliative care services. All of those are available. So I would just close by saying, we've been here for 40 years as Tidewell, and you can count on us being here for many, many more decades to come. We're very committed to our community. As a not-for-profit hospice, we very much appreciate the community's financial support to us and our volunteers. We're so fortunate. We have over 1,200 volunteers that help us in so many ways and are a part of our Stratum Health family. And I'll just close by saying we'll continue to have the wonderful care and compassion and comfort that you've come to expect from us. We call that care redefined, and you can look forward to having that world-class care and commitment from us in the future to come as well. So thank you for making time for me today, and I'll turn the dais back to Garrett or Dom.
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate your insight and sharing your background. It was very beneficial to learn what you guys have gone through and where you're going moving forward. With that, we'd like to turn it over to Frank. Frank, if you want to take it away and talk to us a little bit about the YMCA.
Sure. Thank you so much, and thank you all for allowing me to be here today and tell you a little bit about the YMCA. The YMCA is an organization that's been around for 175 years. It's been in this county serving youth and adults for many, many years. And the COVID impact has been severe on us as we try to provide services. The Y's history goes back to some major events in the history of the United States. The Y was very active during the Civil War, providing aid to soldiers, both blue and gray, on both sides of the battle lines. I served a lot of my career in Pennsylvania, rich history of Pennsylvania, and that struggle led a lot of stories and history regarding the YMCA's involvement there, trying to help mankind. In World War I, the YMCA was very active overseas with canteens and supplied a lot of the nursing services during the World War I conflict. In World War II, the YMCA was one of the founding organizations of the USO. And as we move forward with our Armed Services Division here for all the conflicts up until today and in the hotspots around the world. Locally here, the YMCA follows its mission of youth development, healthy living, and social responsibility, which we do through our programming here at our 2 open locations right now, one in Bradenton and one in Lakewood Ranch. We started before COVID with about 5,400 membership units. That's well over about 15,000 people servicing the communities of Bradenton and Lakewood Ranch, and also our parish facility. Unfortunately, our parish facility is closed and will not reopen, but Lakewood Ranch and Bradenton are open today at limited capacity. We pivoted on March 16th when our normal operations were suspended by the governor's order to providing emergency daycare services to our healthcare workers. And matter of fact, we did partner with Tidewell for that. And we offered services here at Lakewood Ranch and also at Bradenton. We also pivoted to provide and partner with the Manatee County School District for the feeding program for breakfast and lunch for school students, and we have done that and continue to do that. And we've partnered with One Blood to offer our parking lots and our facilities for blood drives. We're a membership-based organization, and we have had members stay with us paying membership fees. About 50% of our membership has stayed with us. About 50% of our membership has chosen to put their memberships on hold or terminate their memberships. And that has had a financial effect on us in reducing our revenue. About $5.4 million in revenue in 2019, which looks like it will be about half that in 2020 as we move forward. So we've had to adjust our operations as well as because of the social distancing and the governmental regulations, but also because of the economic impact which we're faced with. We're opening slowly. We have people coming back. There are a multitude of people in the community that are not comfortable with coming back into indoor fitness facilities. We're offering outdoor classes. We've just opened this past week for indoor classes and our wellness centers. We have summer camp ongoing, although our attendance is restricted because of the social distancing, so we can't handle the number of children that we've handled in years past. The impact from the community itself and the stress within the community that we see on families, the need for food programs, and the unemployment rate has had a significant impact on our programming and as well as how the YMCA reaches out to our members. We've been doing wellness checks with our senior members. We have been offering food service for them or pickups for food delivery should they need it in some of our branches. And we have worked hard to stay in touch with our membership, both virtually and through electronic means as well as telephone. The YMCA is a very social place. It's very hard to do social distancing at a YMCA since people come together to be with each other. So it is that social atmosphere that we have, which is extremely hard to replicate online, although we're attempting to do that through YMCA 360, which is an online program that the YMCAs through the nation are offering for online classes. We've increased our platform for that. We've increased our ability to work remotely and also to reach out to our members remotely. So it is a different and a changing world. And I would echo some of the comments of our prior speaker that the world is changed right now. We kind of joke at it a little bit here to lift our spirits sometime as BC before COVID, DC during COVID, and AC what will look like after COVID. And it's important to understand that we are all walking through this in very uncharted waters. So we, like every organization that has tried to open, especially those, and I have the deepest respect for our childcare workers who put themselves at risk during this COVID pandemic, working with and providing care for children of essential workers. And that is an amazing part of the workforce that we have here at the Y, their commitment to children and their commitment to the YMCA. As we look forward, we hope that we will continue to be able to open and provide more services. However, we are greatly concerned about the uptick in COVID cases in the state of Florida and through some of the other 22 states which are showing an increase in COVID. I see in the questions, one of the questions is how will we deal with if we have more government restrictions, if we have to go back to a lockdown? That is an unknown for everybody. Pre-COVID, we employed 314 individuals. 290 were part-time employees and 24 were full-time. Right now, we have 70 part-time employees back and 11 full-timers back. We're bringing more people back next week. We hope to bring more people back as we expand our programming. We're looking for other sites to run day camp. As the workforce opens up, there's a need for childcare. So we need to work and look at areas where we can provide those. Regarding the social distancing space that we have to work in. As you can imagine, it's challenging to have 8-year-olds social distance, and it's challenging to have 5-year-olds social distance. So as we work for that, we're looking at other alternative sites regarding this. The future for us is one of promise as we look to how we're going to pivot as we come out of this and how our society has changed, how comfortable people will be going back into group settings, and for how long COVID is with us. It could be well into next summer or next fall until or a year from now until we have a vaccine. And that means that the way we operate now, we will continue to have to do so. And we would just hope that we can bend the curve a little bit on COVID so that we're not forced into another shutdown. Economically, that would be devastating to the Y, and it would be devastating to most small businesses. We've weathered the storm here fairly well so far. But if it is sustained again for a long period of time, we've never been in that situation. So we don't know how long our members will be able to stay with us, although they are committed to the Y, but they also have their own financial realities. So that really depends on how the economy opens up, which is really, really a concern for all of us. And then finally, on top of all of this is the mental well-being of both the adults and the children. It's hard to provide care with PPEs on. You can't see smiling faces. It's hard to stay distant. It's hard as when we look at, can we come back to youth sports? Can we do our soccer program? Can we engage in those activities? Those are all unknowns that we have. Budget-wise, obviously, it's been a dramatic difference and a change for us. Lost revenue that we have, there is probably no way to make that up. And for most nonprofits, philanthropy is not going to be able to make up the shortfall. There needs to be some serious government intervention, specifically for nonprofits. There are a lot of discussions in Washington about that now, about the Phase 4 package that Congress is going to be discussing and what may happen with that. There are about 803 corporate YMCAs in the United States with a little over 3,000 actual facilities. Of those 800, there are approximately 400 that are open now. The Northeast has been hit very, very hard, as we all know. So they're slower to come back with the lifting of the restrictions. Our concern now are for the folks in the South and the Southwest, which we're seeing now increases in COVID cases, which may require us to put in more restrictions. And we would hope we would be able to go the other way. The rollback, if it occurs in Florida, we don't know what that will look like. We do have great concern about the opening and the effect of the increase in COVID from the opening. we are doing all we can here. It's very hard to get PPEs, as we all know at this point. We've learned a lot about electrostatic sprayers and sprayers for disinfectants and cleaning regimes. And every time somebody uses a piece of equipment, it's cleaned. Our facilities are closed in the middle of the day for deep cleaning. And we've learned to talk to the children about the experiences that they're feeling and the differences that they feel. The loss from the older children and those that are, graduating from grade school into middle school is real. The loss of no graduations for our high school seniors and our college students is very real. The loss of the ability to play with their friends and to do group sports is very real. And so we're looking for ways to augment that and try to do online groups of play with children, as well as organize our in-person contact with children in their interaction to allow for some of that. So these are all things that are going to be with us for a while, and the longer these restrictions are with us, the greater the impact it's going to be on our youth. And that impact will last for quite a while. And it's how we deal with that and how sensitive we are to deal with that coming out of this. So the YMCA nationally is pivoting. We here locally are pivoting. We're listening to our members. The great divide that we have in the society of the crowded beaches and the people who won't go to the beaches is definitely hard for us to handle in business today. The idea of wearing PPEs and masks is very difficult for a lot of people. And unfortunately, we deal with the backlash of that from whatever perspective they come from or from whatever news organization they listen to. And the reality of that is their perception is real, and we need to deal with it, and we need to be respectful of their positions and work with them. But at the end of the day, we're charged with the responsibility of protecting our members and our staff, and we certainly don't want to be an organization that fosters an outbreak of COVID. And then there's another concern with our workers, which we're all faced with, is that they may be able-bodied to come to work, but they're concerned because they live in a household where somebody is there with a pre-existing condition, or they live with an older parent and they're afraid to bring the disease home with them. So that's the reality that we have to face as we work with our workers who say, I'd love to come back to work, but I just can't. And so that limits us in a way of what we're allowed to bring back online because of the trained staff and because of the certifications that we need for staff. So as we move through this as a society, as a YMCA, we're proud to be here to help and to be able to pivot. We pivoted rather quickly to meet some of the basic needs of our community, and we will continue to do that. We're working hard now to still maintain that the YMCA will not turn anybody away because of the inability to pay. But that is an issue that we're dealing with now with the financial resource reality, which we are all faced with. And so those dollars that we've lost will not return. We're seeking more contributed revenue, both from foundations, and we thank the foundations in Lakewood Ranch, in Manatee County, and some of the national foundations which have stepped up. We thank the banks which have stepped up to help us. And we, like Tidewell, have been a recipient of the PPP dollars. We have not used those dollars yet. We've still segregated them because we're still unclear as to what the forgiveness is going to be. So all of the nonprofits that have received PPP dollars are in the same boat, and those regulations change regularly and changed as of last week again. So it's hard to know what is going to be forgiven or not. And so the reality of that is it's very hard to use those dollars, especially if they're going to turn into a loan, and we have to figure out how we're going to repay that loan, even if it is at 1%. So those are the financial realities. Those are the realities of the individuals and the people that we deal with, both staff and members and in the community. And from a person who's looked through a lens of YMCA work for over 50 years right now. It is a very, very hard, trying, different time. And it is, as we've said, it's not like a hurricane is coming and we know it's going to pass. We didn't get the warning or pay attention to the warning for COVID, and it's going to be here for quite a while to come. And how we navigate that is extremely important, not only as a YMCA, but as a community. And we need to band together as a community to meet the needs of our fellow citizens. So any way that the YMCA can partner with any community entity, we certainly would be willing to do that within the resources that we have. For we're here solely for the community and for the betterment of the youth that we serve and the adults and seniors that we serve. And the YMCA is an organization that serves diapers through senior citizens and is one with a very rich history. So I would like to thank you all for the time today that you've given me to tell the YMCA story, and would be happy later on to answer any questions that you may have, or you certainly can email me those questions, and we'd be happy to either have a telephone conversation with you or speak via email. And with that, I'll turn it back to Garrett. Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing the YMCA's perspective. I was very glad to hear that you're partnering with the two other panelists. That's great to hear that the organizations are working together, and I completely agree that as a community we need to come together. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jayne. I know you have a PowerPoint, so if you want to share your screen and jump right in, we'd love to hear from SunCoast.
Give me a second. Okay, everybody see the slides? Great, okay. First of all, I want to thank the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance for inviting us to share our story, and it's really an honor to be paired with the hospice and YMCA, both two really great organizations. I thought a slideshow might help with my presentation, because a blood bank is actually a pharmaceutical company. It's highly technical and probably one of the most regulated nonprofits in the country. And I'm sure hospice it deals with the same regulations. The mission of SunCoast is very old. We were founded in 1949, and we actually exceed our mission to supply a reliable amount of quality blood products and services to hospitals and health centers in need. SunCoast is so much more than a traditional blood bank, and I want to tell you a little bit about that. We're the sole provider of blood products for 10 hospitals, including our own Lakewood Ranch Medical Center, Manatee Memorial Hospital, Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and recently we became the provider of blood products for Moffitt Cancer Center, which was a huge expansion of our footprint and also a huge testament to a healthcare facility of this specialty hospital trusting SunCoast because of the products we're able to provide that other blood banks cannot provide. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about that later. And coming in 2021, our community is so lucky that we're going to have a cancer institute at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. And it is, actually, I work a lot with Richard Brown, who is the medical director, and he keeps me updated. And this is going to be an amazing facility. Next week, I'm touring the oncology center out in Lakewood Ranch, the radiology center, which is going to be such a great boost for people to be able to have treatment in their own backyard. And then next year, the Venice campus of Sarasota Memorial will be opening, and we'll be serving them as well. So what are our key services? Primarily, we're known, and what people think of a blood bank is collecting, testing, and distributing blood products. We test every single blood product when you donate, whether it's your first donation or your 100th donation. We test for 13 infectious diseases. That is what keeps the blood supply safe, as well as other technologies that we have in place. What you might not realize about SunCoast is that we also provide inpatient and outpatient therapeutic apheresis services. And these apheresis services are things such as plasma exchange. If you have an illness, we will treat this illness by going in and completely transfusing your unhealthy plasma with healthy plasma. And these treat things such as Guillain-Barré syndrome, lupus, sickle cell, TTP. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce thrombotic, whatever but that's a bleeding disorder. We are also involved in cancer treatment. A few years ago, we were approached by Sarasota Memorial Hospital and Florida cancer specialists to join them in mononuclear cellular therapy. And what this is a late-stage treatment for prostate cancer patients. It's not life-saving, but it's life-extending up to 2 years. And we have given hundreds of men more months and even years to spend with their family. What happens is SunCoast part is to take out the dendritic cells through apheresis, and those dendritic cells are then turned into a vaccine that is reinfused into the cancer patient, and that vaccine seeks and attacks the cancer cells. And there's a lot of promise with this. We're hoping to be able to extend this to ovarian cancer patients in the future. We also do bioresearch for clinical trials and treatment advances. One of the things that we're doing in our clinical trials is trying to discover unknown pathogens. There are pathogens out there just as dangerous as Zika, as COVID, that we don't know about. And this is my opportunity to tell you about pathogen-reduced platelets. This is why Moffitt chose SunCoast Blood Centers to be their blood supplier. We were the first blood bank in the entire country to offer pathogen-reduced platelets. And the reason we're first at many of these new technologies is that we're a very progressive blood bank, and we are totally locally managed and operated. Our staff lives and works in the communities that we serve. Our board is local, our CEO is local. I grew up here, and I think that's a very important component with an organization such as this, is to be local because you understand the local needs. And because we are so progressive, the Cirrus Corporation came to us a few years ago with a new technology called pathogen reduction. And that is right now for platelets. The FDA fast-tracked the approval of pathogen reduction in reaction to the Ebola crisis. The Gates Foundation actually helped fund this technology in Africa. And what happens is we are able to take the platelets and we run them through, this company created a molecule called amotosalen. And when we run the platelets through this technology, the amotosalen surrounds all known and unknown pathogens and flushes them out. And we'll also be providing the Cancer Institute at Sarasota Memorial with these platelets because they are the safest platelets available on the market for cancer patients. One of the problems with platelets is they have to be stored at room temperature. Therefore, they're very prone to bacteria, and pathogen reduction greatly reduces the chance of any bacteria-related reactions with platelets, which is critically important for cancer patients who are so autoimmune compromised. And then another thing is that we support recovery from natural and man-made disasters. And what I mean by this is, for instance, in 2017, when Hurricane Harvey hit the Texas Suncoast, our organization led the recovery effort in Texas. We established mobile depots. We worked with the US Navy. Our community came forward and donated hundreds of units of blood along with other blood center affiliates around the country. And we were able to supply Texas with the blood they needed, because during a hurricane, you often are, you have to cease collections. And the same thing happened to us 2 weeks later when Hurricane Irma hit. The blood center was out of commission for 3 days. And these same organizations that rallied to help Texas rallied to help SunCoast. The community rallied to help us. Michael's on East had a huge emergency blood drive for us. Sarasota Memorial, Manatee Memorial, they all rallied to help us. And then another one of our key services is to provide specialty blood products. And these are the rare blood products that somebody who has received multiple blood transfusions and now has the antibodies and antigens from other patients, that they require certain blood products that when we find a donor who has these products, we'll actually put them on in our database. And when somebody meets their DNA, actually, we will call on these donors to provide the specialty blood products. And that's especially critical for infants in crisis. I know we're working right now with an infant in crisis that was born with a bleeding disorder. And we have been looking to secure a donor for this 3-day-old baby. So that's one of the things that we do that people often don't think about. So the impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 was on our radar in December, and our CEO began having weekly conferences with our affiliate blood banks around the country. And we knew that this was basically a freight train barreling down on us. It just was a matter of when. So on January 30th, the US declared a public health emergency. At that time, by January 30th, we had our plans in place and our blood inventory was stable. On February 6th, we had the first COVID-related death. SunCoast was watching and waiting. That was in Seattle. We knew that it was inevitable that it was going to cross the country. On March 11, our country banned travel to Europe. And at that point, 90% of our blood drives canceled, which was a tremendous, tremendous impact, a negative impact for us. We collect up to 65% of our blood products at blood drives, and it was devastating to have 90% canceled. So we went on alert, and we asked the community to come in, help us before the state of Florida was shut down. And people, when they respond en masse, we live in a wonderful community, so we were able to collect the amount we needed to last for 42 days, because that's how long blood products last. And then on March 13, the national emergency was declared. We already knew that convalescent plasma, which I'll refer to as CCP, was going to be a factor in the treatment of COVID-19. This is what evolved with the Ebola crisis. If you remember the physician who was brought back to this country, the missionary physician brought back to the country, he received convalescent plasma from recovered Ebola patients. This is a treatment that's been around for 100 years. So they knew that it had promise with COVID. So on April the 1st, when the state of Florida was shut down and elective surgeries were canceled, that week we collected our first unit of CCP. It was quite a challenging process because the testing was not available. And at first we could only take convalescent plasma from patients who had recovered and had a lab certification that they had the COVID virus. And then, as you all know, as you've heard, those regulations were relaxed, and we've been testing people for the antibodies. And so the statistics through June 30th, we live in a great community. We've had 73 recovered COVID patients donate their plasma, and one donation can yield up to 4 therapeutic treatments. We've been able to recover 37.4 units of convalescent plasma, which equates to 243 therapeutic doses. And we've been able to treat 187 COVID patients with these products. So, working through the pandemic, we were in the process of building out a 25,000 square foot facility in Lakewood Ranch. And we fast-tracked the move-in date of this because we needed to get our organization under one roof. We were spread out over 7 different campuses. So at the last week of March, we were able to move into this new facility and get our lab, our manufacturing, everything under one roof. We established a COVID hotline, and this is still in place. The best way to reach us is at our COVID email. It's covid19@suncoastblood.org. During the pandemic, we work with local hospitals and health departments to reach recovered COVID patients. We were fortunate to collect enough CCP to share throughout the country. We were getting phone calls from around the country because other blood centers were not prepared yet to collect CCP. SunCoast always seems to be ahead of the curve with these things because we're extremely proactive. We had a hospital in Wisconsin call us and tell us, I have a doctor in my office on his knees. He has a pregnant woman who is going to go on a ventilator. We have got to try convalescent plasma. We were able to ship it out that day, thanks to the generosity of our community who came forward. We have even supplied the Red Cross with convalescent plasma. We've sent it to New Mexico. We've sent it to New Orleans. Our first priority is always to serve local patients first. But as a blood center, we have an obligation to help other blood centers and other patients throughout the country if we're able, as we do during hurricanes, during other crises. And all while we're doing this, we still continue to provide blood products for cancer patients, traumas, bleeding disorders, and major surgeries. And as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. And as the others have said, people are still afraid. Some people who are very cautious because they're in the high risk group, they're afraid to go out. So out of the pandemic, we have established a concierge program. And what that is we're able to go into a person's home now and collect blood. We reached out through the COVID initiative and applied for funding so that we could have 3 teams, one to serve Sarasota County, one to serve Manatee County, and one to serve Charlotte and DeSoto counties. We were extremely fortunate and very grateful that all 3 teams were funded by the Gulf Coast Foundation, by the Barancic Foundation, Sarasota and Manatee Community Foundations, the Lakewood Ranch Fund, and the Selby Foundation. So we're going to be purchasing special vehicles, technology, and putting teams out in the community. And this is not going to be just a program for COVID. That was the initial birth of the program, and it's still, as another panel member said, COVID's going to be around through next year. So this program is going to be very important. But if we have a hurricane and have to cease collections, this could be a lifeline to blood products. So what's next for us? What's most important? We've got to increase our number of blood drives and expand our concierge program. As I mentioned, blood drives are extremely critical for our community. We collect 65% of our blood on these. So I'm asking you, if you own a business, if you're part of a neighborhood, a community organization, please reach out to us. Your blood stays local, and we are dedicated to serving the local community. Now, we are still collecting CCP, and we are now offering it in a new delivery system. It's called hyperimmune globulin. And that has a greater concentration of the antibodies. And why it's so important for recovered COVID donors to come forward is because this can be stored for up to 1 year frozen. So if we do have a second wave, we will have reserves of this plasma to first serve our community, and then if it's needed around the country, we can help as well. And another thing that we are trying to do, and it's very difficult with the COVID crisis, is because the opposite is happening, we have to increase our donor base in preparation to serve the Cancer Institute at Sarasota Memorial Hospital. A lot of people don't realize that 50% of our blood products are used to treat cancer patients, because while treatment is life-saving, it also destroys the healthy red blood cells and the platelet cells. Platelets are vital for the treatment of cancer, as are red cells. So that's what's next for us. And I want to say that I have talked to so many recovered patients, and their stories have been harrowing. It seems to be, I hardly knew I had it, to the gentleman who was on the cruise in Europe that we all read about, where his couple, the gentleman from his traveling companion, died of the virus. It's really a scary illness because it's so silent. But in addition to hearing the scary stories that we're hearing, I wanted to share a couple of very promising stories about convalescent plasma. At the beginning of the crisis, a flight nurse that I used to work with Bayflight called me. His father-in-law was in Lakewood Ranch Hospital on a ventilator, and he was begging for convalescent plasma. They had tried everything, nothing was working. We were able to get the plasma over to them the same day. His family credits the medications and the convalescent plasma for helping their father rally, who was literally at death's door. He was on a ventilator for 16 days. He had other comorbidities. He was overweight. He had heart disease. But thanks to the different tools that the medical community is able to offer our physicians, one being convalescent plasma, he pulled through. And then about a week later, I got a call from Dr. Singh at Manatee Memorial. He had a young man on his deathbed. He was 41 years old, had been in good health. They were trying everything. They did not want to put him on a ventilator. That is the treatment of last resort. We were able to get him convalescent plasma I think that same day. And Dr. Singh called me the next day and said, this patient is conscious, his vitals are better. I think he's going to recover. And I said, Dr. Singh, is that a coincidence? And he said, no way. He said, this patient was way too sick. His organs were shutting down. He said, I can't thank you enough. And our patients are so lucky too to be receiving the excellent care that they're privy to at Sarasota Memorial, Lakewood Ranch Hospital, Manatee Memorial. We're just very fortunate to live in a generous community. And the last thing I want to share with you is that SunCoast is a true nonprofit blood center. We do fundraising to purchase our blood mobiles and the technology and the equipment that we need. We run on a razor-thin margin. We feel ethically bound to help control the cost of health care. When we were supplying COVID-19 to all of these patients and around the country, we did so at no charge to all of these hospitals and all of these patients. And we have been hurt by this crisis financially. We have fundraisers, just like the arts communities do and the animal welfare community. And we've had to cancel these. And we've really been at a standstill. So people don't often think of us as a nonprofit, but we are a nonprofit. And we're so grateful to those and the foundations I mentioned earlier who have stepped up to help us. We couldn't do it without these foundations. But most of all, we can't do it without the support of thousands, tens of thousands of generous donors who roll up their sleeve every day to give blood products to people they will never meet. And as I said, we are local. When you donate here, your blood stays here. There are other large blood centers in our community, but the blood, and the first thing I'll say is, we're happy you donate blood anywhere, but think about us first when you're donating blood in your own community, because you will be serving the patients in your own community. So thank you very much, and it's been a real pleasure to be able to talk about our message.
Thank you, Jayne. I appreciate you providing your background and what SunCoast is doing. It's great to hear that you guys are local and all the positive things you're doing for the community locally as well on a national level. In the interest of time, we're going to share everyone's contact information after the presentation. So if you have any questions, I know there was a couple that came through on the chat. We'll review those and get those to the applicable panelists, and they will be in touch to answer your questions. With that, I'll turn it back over to Dom to close us out. Dom, I think you're muted still, sorry.
Thanks, Garrett. And Garrett, I started by thanking you for helping us put it on again today, and what Lakewood Ranch Community Fund does for everyone in our community right here locally. So a few reminders, our Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance Community Forum is still running on the website. This allows an opportunity for our members to put any needs, any special hours, offerings, or help that you could get or give to our fellow members. So please use it. As you will know, and we heard a lot about nonprofits. So the Alliance is a 501c6. We couldn't play in the Paycheck Protection Program because the C6s are not allowed. So we're hoping maybe in phase 4 of the changes that they'll look at the nonprofits and realize what we do for you and what we're doing today, we've done for free since the beginning. We've changed direction. Although we need the revenue, we think the community needs us more, so we'll continue to do that. We've changed our membership going through the rest of the year to a prorated membership, so it's probably about as affordable as you would ever see. And just a couple oncoming events. We have an event that will be a fun one, a game night coming up on June 18th in combination with our Young Leaders Alliance. So it'll be, should be a good time at 5 to 6 o'clock. And we have Lunch with Ranchers on tune for June 23rd at 11 a.m. So again, thank you, Debbie, Frank, and Jayne, not only for your time today, but as important, the energy you put into everyday work, assisting our region in so many ways. An additional thank you to all of our nonprofits around our region. Some of you were on today. Those that weren't, hopefully you'll be able to see this video as well. Without you, our community would not be the same. So a virtual round of applause for our speakers this morning. And that ends us today, and I hope you all have a great weekend.